Alright, so last time we created a basic tone out of free software. If you've seen the last video, you'll understand how we got to this point. Currently sounds like this. Very nice, current, like, modern progressive metal tone. Okay, so next thing we're going to look at is how to EQ this tone further to make it play nice with other instruments in a mix. Be aware that for... Nope. Loaded a preset. Nope. Be aware that for the time being, we are having to think ahead to a mix, but there's no mix. And that just comes with experience. I can give you some basic guidelines as to what frequencies do what. But we'll get a lot more in-depth with this once I start my actual mixing series. However, for the time being, let's simply look at... Alright, first thing we want to do is set a high pass. And a high pass, I leave the bandwidth at 2, personally. What a high pass does, you set a point for it, and you can see it's currently set at 100. You can see the roll-off starts at around 150 at the bandwidth of 2. And then it just drops off steeper and steeper. And this is great for cleaning up your lows. I like mine somewhere between 60 and 130. And the values change depending on how much you're trying to make room for. Next, let's look at a low pass. A low pass is the same thing, but with the opposite direction. So this one focuses on the highs. And that one is great for making room for your vocals and your cymbals, whereas the high pass back down here is great for making room for your bass, your kick, your snare, stuff like that. With the high pass, I like it anywhere between 12K and 7K. You can get pretty extreme with it, but only if you need to. Now, to isolate specific problem frequencies, the best way to do that with any instrument is to create a narrow bandwidth. I like 0.50, boost all the way to 12, and while listening to your mix, you're going to sweep it until you hear it lock into something and it knocks out another instrument. It might also just be a bad ringing sound, usually in the mids. Now, since I've already done this extensively in a mix, I know these areas by heart. You should always, you can check these areas, but don't just cut them out of principle, you know? Cut them because you hear that you need to. The first one we want to check is actually going to be around 250. Hear that? Hear how it just got painful? That is muddy. That is bad. I do not like that, so let's cut it. And I'm just dragging down. Really, there's no set amount to how much I'm cutting. You can't really tell unless you're in a mix. I'm just showing you the difference, so... The next one I'm hearing, and you may hear others before me, this order is not arbitrary either. Next one I'm hearing is usually around 650. I call it the cardboard box frequency. For some reason it makes me think that like the guitar was recorded in a cardboard box. So let's drag that down. And that has the effect of making more room in the low mids. So, for instance, your drums will feel more... It increases front to back spatial awareness in the mix. You have a better sense of what's supposed to be behind the other instruments and what's supposed to be in front of it. The next common one is around 4K. I almost never leave this area intact. I almost always feel there's something I have to get rid of. And there's one more big one. The one at 4K makes room for pretty much anything. I feel like it really just kind of throws your guitar over the entire mix, which is a sound that I am not at all a fan of. And the last big one is between 2K and 3K. And I've heard that referred to as the pain frequency. I don't like it in my guitars very much because it's very easy for them to then proceed to overpower the vocals, which is a big no-no in this kind of thing. So, okay, we now understand most of the problem frequencies. You might find yourself cutting down here or up here. That's fine. Just experiment with what the different areas sound like, and really just, if you find something getting in something else's way, cut it, or don't. Turn down your volume. I don't know. There are a million different approaches to mixing, and there are very few wrong ways to end up with the sound you want. Just be aware that these areas I've covered here are very common problem frequencies. And so once you're aware of these, you'll have a much easier time getting a mix to work. And you can always mess with the amp's onboard EQ. I think a more realistic tone might be something like this. And, you know, that's gone and screwed up everything we were working with, but it's just kind of another thing to play around with. This is all very experimental. It's all just playing around. The big reason this sounds so lifelike is the combination of Solo C and X50 or whatever your main amp simulator is going to be, but Solo C as a booster. These particular amp impulses. Check out the last video where I go into detail about all these if you're confused. Some kind of sub-bass synthesizer used subtly to add that real amp weight. A simulator that gives us the feeling of air pressure against a mic. And something that gives us the feeling of a dynamic volume curve. That's what's really going to give you the lifelike feeling. The rest is just shaping this tone to fit your mix. Alright guys, I think that's going to be it for now. If there's anything you'd like to hear more about, leave a note in the comments. If you'd like to help me out at all, share this video, like this video, subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this as interesting as I do. And until next time, see ya!